Interested in real estate? How about wealth? Well, they go hand in hand. And here, you'll learn all about it. Welcome to Be the Bank, a podcast where we discuss and debate the topics centered around real estate investing. Your host, Justin Bogard, shares insights into investing in real estate to create real wealth and passive income for you and your family. He'll share stories of real estate investments done right, walk you through the process of owning a real estate note, and most importantly, educate you so you can be the bank. This is Be the Bank, brought to you by American Note Buyers. Now, here's your host, Justin Bogard.
Hey, listener, welcome to another episode on the Be the Bank podcast. This is episode number 10 of season 6. Today, I have a guest, Mr. Dan Deppen. He's a friend of mine. He's been in the note business about as long as I have. And today, we're really going to beat up the topic of professionalism in our industry. And we have, a lot of experience between the both of us and dealing with different people and the corporate backgrounds that we both come from. So you guys can enjoy this conversation. Stay tuned. Denver Dan Deppen.
How you doing?
You like that? The 3Ds. You're the 3D,
I like that.
man.
That I've never been called that before. I've been called other things, but yeah, that's what I call it.
I just made that up. I don't know. I'm weird like that, man. I come up with little catchphrases and little sayings really quickly and they stick. So hopefully people like it when they're received.
Yeah. Maybe it'll stick. Yeah.
So yeah, you're from Denver. You got your swag on there representing your team, the old Denver Nuggets out there with the Joker that's taking over the game against the Timberwolves.
Yeah, it's playoff season.
The Ant-Man.
So, yeah, rough start against the Timberwolves, but they're coming back a little, so we'll see.
Yeah, we're recording this actually the day before this comes out, so this actually will air tomorrow. So this is going to be fresh, new content. But yeah, so I'm in Indiana. I'm a Pacer fan. The Pacers are in the second round as well, going against the Knicks. So the series is tied 2-2, and obviously Dan's out there representing Denver, and his team is they're tied as well, 2-2, right?
2-2, yeah. They dropped the first 2 home games and then won the next 2 and caught it up. So
it usually doesn't work like that. Like our series, where both teams are winning the home games. And then your series, both teams are winning the away games, which is
and what was weird was the first 2 games, the Nuggets didn't just lose, like they got blown out. So I don't know what's been going on, but hopefully they fixed whatever that was.
My aunt and uncle live out there in Denver, so they're Denver fans as well of all the teams: Avalanche, Broncos, Nuggets, and the Rockies.
Yeah. Rockies are pretty awful from what I understand.
I just like it because people can just hit home runs out there because the air's so much thinner.
Yeah, I play a lot of golf, and it's definitely also a fun place to play golf.
Yeah,
the ball goes a lot further.
Okay, so my experience in Denver, I'm kind of spoiled. So I've been to Vail to go skiing, and then I also played at, I think it's called Castle Rock, the course.
Oh, Castle Pines.
Castle Pines, yeah, I think
it's in Castle Rock, I believe. Yeah.
So that's my kind of experience out there. So I think I've kind of touched on the lavish end of Denver there.
That's cool. I've definitely skied Vail. I've never played Castle Pines though, so you're ahead of me on that one.
There's one hole. It's a par 4, and it's a drivable par 4, but you wouldn't think that because the length. I think it's like 450 yards.
So like straight downhill or something?
But it's straight downhill, yeah. So
the other place to go if you want to have fun is play golf at, I believe it's called Eagle Vale Golf Club. So it's up at Vail, so you're actually much higher than Denver or Castle Rock. And all the tee boxes are like artificially elevated. It's like it's riding only, and they drive you like way up. So you're not only playing at like 8,000 or 8,500 feet, but you're hitting way downhill. So it's like playing on the moon. The ball doesn't come down.
I just hope it goes straight. If you start,
if it's offline, it's not stopping. Yeah,
it's not findable.
No,
you might hit a house and then 2 neighborhoods away.
Or the next town. Yeah.
All right, Dan. So you've been on my show before when it was the previous iteration called the 2 Wealth Show, and you haven't been on in a while. So I just want to reintroduce you to the audience. I'll let you kind of tell your quick little story there and kind of how you started in the note business and kind of what you're doing today.
Yeah, sounds good. So I started in notes in 2017 and then scaled up fairly rapidly. then did it, full time for a couple of years in there, and then went back to having a W-2 for a couple of years. But when I was doing the W-2, I was still doing a lot of notes on the side. And then, earlier this year, I left that again. So I'm back to full-time notes. So I've been doing notes the whole time, but I've just gone through, periods of varying busyness with day jobs. But yeah, I've been at it for several years now. And, this year really focused on growing. So I bought a decent number of notes so far this year, and look to be acquiring more. So
are you buying non-performing, performing, mixed bag of both?
I'm buying both. It's predominantly performing.
Okay.
Although I did buy a couple of non-performers this year, which these days I just don't see as many of them.
The price is about the same.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I really moved, mostly to performing notes. Yeah, because the spread between a performing and non-performing note tightened to the point where I didn't see the point.
Yeah.
And messing with the non-performing. So they've been a little fewer and farther between. I'd say my specialty is kind of what I call subperforming. There are a lot of loans out there that are cash flowing. The borrower makes payments, but they don't necessarily make them reliably every month. So they'll, make a couple, miss one or two, maybe make a double payment. But I like those because over the course of a year, you're going to get 11 or 12 payments. So on a yearly basis, they cash flow nice. Just on a monthly basis, it's sporadic. You can get better pricing on those. So those are kind of what I've been focused on mostly.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that's a missed opportunity with people in our business, is that they're so enamored with having a loan that's paying perfectly and paying, at the first of the month on time. And they don't understand this is an imperfect world with imperfect inventory that we have. We're not buying, a $700,000 mortgage in a high-end neighborhood in, the north side of Indianapolis. It's like you're not going to, at a 3% interest rate, like you're not going to get, payments coming in like that. And, it's going to be a little bit different. You have to be a little bit flexible with it. It may come in the first, it may come in before the first, or it may come in 9 days after the first. That's just the ebb
and that's why you can get the higher yields, right? Like if you could buy those other pristine loans, you're going to be getting, I don't know what it'd be these days, 6 or 7%, something like that, which most people aren't happy with. So there's no free lunch. So something's got to give.
No free lunch. I like that. But yeah. So did you start a fund?
No, I didn't. I looked at starting one a couple of years ago, and I think that was right around the onset of COVID. And, the challenge with the fund was finding the right portfolio at the right price to kind of get it off the ground.
Yeah.
And I was working on that. And then right around when COVID broke loose, investors got super scared, just like everybody clamped down.
Yeah.
And so I haven't gone back to that. I may pick that up at some point, although I've got a pretty good system for managing what I have now. And while I'm buying more loans and definitely growing, I'm not the kind of guy that's trying to manage, 1,000 loans or something.
You're not that. This guy over here.
No, I've got my sweet spot and where I'm trying to hit. So
yeah, I did stumble into wanting to get a fund. So Richard and I, my old business partner, Richard, he's retired now. We set up a fund last year, over a year ago. And so it's a smaller fund. It's only a $10 million fund. And so we are buying all performing. It's a 506B. So we just bought all performing loans, and we've probably gotten, I don't know, I think I've bought 16 so far in a year. So it's cash flowing pretty good. But we're pretty picky with the loans that we buy, because obviously we want our investors to continue to get paid, and obviously us make money on the backside as well. But it's been interesting. It's a big learning curve. Accounting was definitely something that I had to stay on top of and make sure it was set up correctly. But after it was set up correctly, it runs fairly smooth. And then every now and then you might get a borrower that just balks on a payment and just, kind of move the needle in the right direction, and maybe get an attorney letter involved to scare somebody. But it doesn't happen very often. Maybe 2 or 3 loans have kind of gotten behind a little bit, but they've also gotten caught back up as well. So it's worked out pretty good in our fund so far. So not sure what the future holds for it. We may dabble in some non-performing and commercial, maybe next year or the year after. But the capital raising is the biggest challenge for me. It's just because, when you're trying to run the fund and you're doing it, kind of all on your own, so to speak, without, employees and just relying on some vendors. It's just tough to manage all that expectation of running the operations and raising the private capital. So it's like you have to set aside time of when you raise private capital and events and doing, webinars and things like that.
Yeah, it's tough. And so it sounds like you did the B fund, so you can do non-accredited investors. That's nice. That makes life a little bit easier.
It does. We had a pretty good database pool between Richard and I, and so we were able to make connections and reconnect with people from our database, and that's already knew us to get started with our funds. We definitely had a good base to go to start off with, and then it's just reaching out to new people and having them learn about what we do and stuff, and then introducing the fund to them at a later point. So,
yeah, my challenge was just looking at the operational costs of running it and all the legal costs, and I was like, well, to have it make sense, I had to come out the gate like at a certain size, and it was just difficult to get everything aligned. I didn't want to kind of ramp it up slowly and almost treat it as a loss leader till I got to a certain scale, because I can still fund deals, with the certain individuals that I work with. So yeah. So far I haven't been driven to that model just yet.
Yeah. Well, if you need some advice on what not to do, I can help you with that.
Okay. I might take you up on that.
Well, Dan, I thought it would be fun to talk about professionalism. And we talked about that in the little opener there. And so in my experience, I've been doing this full time since 2016. I started off as someone that didn't have a lot of money in this business. And so I would be the guy that kind of has the hustle, and I would find the deal and I'd put the deal in front of somebody. And I've kind of learned some things, what buyers are looking for, what sellers are looking to do. And in the process of learning things, I've also seen how I stood out from other people. And I would get this feedback from people on saying like, gosh, you actually do what you say you're going to do. And, you wear, you dress the part, I guess I would say, verbally and, physically dress the part. And so I kept that in the back of my mind going, okay, am I like the only one that's doing this, or is it just a lot of people that are out there that are just bad actors and posers? And so I think it's the latter of the two, where there's just people out there that are just lazy about this stuff. And I just find it so irritating that, you can make a pretty good spread on a commission if you find a tape and flip it to somebody, or if you find a deal and you're able to make some money on it, what we call flipping a note. And you're making a pretty sizable, a few $1,000 maybe on a note that you're flipping, but, you don't have to put a lot of hours into it. But at the same time, I just don't understand why people are so lazy about stuff, like, with information, like with emails and being lazy about it, or typing it from their phone, and you can tell that they're mistyping things. And it's just, I don't know, little nuances like that. They just irritate the crap out of me. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but
yeah, I mean, I see a lot of that same stuff out there. It's always a challenge, right? Like there's the folks who are, some of them are just bad actors, and then they're the ones who are a little bit lazy and kind of difficult to work with. The good thing about that though is it's a small industry, and it still kind of surprises me some of the bad behavior I've seen. Like when I started in notes, I knew it was a small industry, and I just kind of assumed that would enforce good behavior. And I realized like you can't make that assumption.
Yeah.
But the glasses half full view on that is, if you are very reliable, that gives you a big advantage, right? So like some of the best deals that I've bought were from my network, where they just called me, and those notes didn't even really hit the market, because they knew if something fit my buy box and there was nothing super wrong with it, there wasn't some title flaw or whatever, that would close on it, pretty quickly and reliably. So, it's annoying to have to deal with that stuff. The advantage is it becomes a little bit easier to kind of stand out from the crowd.
Yeah. And I say that not to introduce more competition for you or I. And there's just not going to be competition because there's just too much inventory out there. So if anything, we're just encouraging people to do things the right way, because there are, and we could probably name a few names, and we could probably name the first two names that come to our head are probably the same ones in this industry that are just a problem. Right?
Yeah.
And we're not going to say that over the air here, but we're just going to say like, it's known the people that are not doing this the right way are the ones that are, basically screwing over people and not doing what they say that they're going to do. They get blacklisted really quickly. And it's the gossip isn't intentional to be gossip. It's just like, hey, I did this deal with this one company or this one person. This is what happened to me in my experience. And they said, okay, I'm glad that you said that because I'm getting ready to do due diligence on a file with that person or that company. And now I know to keep my eyes open to make sure that, I'm checking all my boxes and making sure I'm doing due diligence on them, because some of these people or these companies, they don't have liquidity. And they don't tell you they don't have liquidity until you get to the 11th hour when they're wondering why they can't fund a deal.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, right? And it's funny, especially if you could go to like a live event.
Yeah,
you'll learn all kinds of stuff that's going on.
Yeah,
in the industry. Like I know, like me, like I'll have conversations face to face or on the phone that with information I'm not necessarily going to throw into emails or other places.
Yeah. There's a time and place for it. Like if someone has a casual conversation with me, I can just tell my experience and be like, hey, this could have been something where it was just me and it's just the transaction I had with them, but I'm just going to share with you what happened to me. So hopefully your experience wasn't the same, because I've had that with people that where I've had a bad experience with somebody, but their experience was okay. And maybe it was something that I did, or maybe it was just that one transaction, but I just don't like to deal with a lot of BS. And so if someone is honest and truthful and transparent, even if they screw up something, I'm okay with that, because I just want to have a relationship with somebody to where I can just trust them, be like, oh, okay. Hey, I totally made a mistake here. This is my error. I'll pay for it or whatever. Not to be like, okay, I hope I can close this with this person and they don't find out about this till it's too late. Like, oh, you own it. Sorry, it's your problem now. You have to pay the taxes on it. Or hey, they didn't have insurance on it, so now you got to advance the insurance. Forced place insurance on it. So I don't like to deal with that stuff, obviously. And so I just try to make it clear with people like, hey, look, I'm an open door policy over here. So anything you want to know about me, go ahead and find out or ask me any questions. So,
yeah, I mean, the guy that I closed some notes with earlier this year has been, I've worked with him before, but he's pretty fantastic. There was one where like, I bought the note, we got it, transferred over. And then there was this court date coming up for a code violation. This was a land contract. And he called me. He's like, hey, I didn't know this was going on. He's like, I'll take care of this. Don't worry about it. And then we had some hassles with the loan servicers getting the loans transferred, and it took entirely too long to get the loans transferred. I can get on my soapbox about loan servicers as well. But like,
I don't think we have enough time for that, Dan.
In the meantime, a bunch of payments had gone to him that were after the cutoff day that should have gone to me. And so we basically just figured out, what he owed me, and he sent me a check, and, it was like, no problem. And then I bought a couple more notes from the guy just the other week. So
yeah, even if the pricing is not that great, if I know I'm going to get experience like that with a person that I can do business with, I'm willing to pay a little bit more money, because it's actually going to be cheaper for me in the long run to work with them than it is somebody else that may be giving me a great deal, but they may, be hiding some things or disguising some things that are going to be a problem for me in the future, because they're trying to get rid of their problem and not really tell me all the details.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, right, like notes is a game you can play for a really long time. Like if anybody's gone to the Paper Source conference in particular, there's, I met a bunch of dudes there in their 70s and 80s that have been doing this for like 40 years. Right. So I try to think of things in like a decades long timeline. And so I want to work with people that are easy to work with and that I can just do business with over and over and over again. I don't like I do it sometimes, but I don't like the trust but verify type relationships where it's like, okay, I can get a deal from this guy, but I got to watch him like a hawk, and I got to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, or, he's going to get me at some point. Like that's just draining and not really sustainable.
Yeah, it is. It's so what I've been working on lately is looking at many different portfolios from people that are kind of new to originating loans, whether it's, on single family houses or commercial stuff or land stuff. And so I don't really know these, what we'll call operators, like they're manufacturing notes and they're doing it, a smart way. They're trying to create wealth and build wealth, and they just don't know what they don't know. And sometimes they get in their own way because they make assumptions that they are the expert financier, because they feel like this is a simple product with a simple methodology and a simple way to design this note, when in fact they're just shooting themselves in the foot, and they're actually not making the most wealth that they could be doing, just because they don't have the proper note education. So
is that because they're not structuring the note?
What's that?
Is that because they're not structuring the note optimally for
Correct.
resale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the main points there. I think they make the generalization that if they charge a higher interest rate, they're making more money, and they may have like a longer amortization as opposed to a shorter. And they just do things that are just contradictory to what logic does for our business and what makes sense mathematically. Because we know that they don't want to hold the paper forever, right? They have to have liquidity and they have to recycle their money. And otherwise they're not going to be able to continue to run their operation, because at some point they're going to borrow as much as they can and have much of their money out there that they can't do anymore. They have to wait until, income comes in to build up so they can go buy more opportunities. So knowing that going forward, they should be talking to somebody like a Dan or a Justin and saying, hey, how do I set this up in a manner at which this is a business flow of inventory that comes in and out? So we have people that do that think ahead like that, but some people aren't seeing the big picture, and it goes back to they just don't know what they don't know. And so I wish we had more opportunity to get in front of these bigger operators or these land developers or these, commercial property guys that are doing seller financing. Just say, hey, look, this is a really cool tool that you can get liquidity. You don't have to go to a bank. You can just use us. And then everybody's happy because we all see this inventory come through, and you're doing the work on the front end and we're creating wealth on the back end for you and us.
Yeah. I'm always a little surprised that sellers don't make it easier for buyers. Like I've never done that mass creation of notes, whether it's through, buying raw land and, carving it up and seller financing the lots or some of the mobile home stuff that people are doing. But if I was doing that, I would just create like a really tight due diligence package and make it like super simple for the buyer. Like I see a lot of deals where they give you kind of limited information and it's very buyer beware. And it's like, I'm not going to do a bunch of work to figure this out. If you've done your homework and this is a good note, just give me all the info. It's in your best interest, to do that. So, cause the market's plenty big, right? There's, on the generation side, I had a conversation recently with Fred and Tracy Rui. And I think there were like 89,000 seller finance notes created last year, plus all the other ones that are out there. And, all the other paper that's floating in the system relative to a kind of a relatively small number of people like us who buy these things. That's why I'm never really worried about competition. That's why I, share information freely and things like that. Cause I feel like once everything gets a lot more professionalized, this whole market should really be like 20 times larger than what it is today.
Yeah. My local real estate club, there's still nobody else that does this as a branding and advertisement that they are a note buyer and seller like I do. And I just still can't believe it. I've been doing this for 7-8 years now, and there's still no one else that does it like this. So it just surprised me because they all have this conversations and these ideas and these topics, and they all think about either wholesaling, being a landlord, or fixing and flipping houses. And nobody talks about the financial part of it, or being the note creator, the note seller, or the note harvester, as I call it. And they just don't look at it because it's not mainstream enough. You got flipping.
And the information is difficult to get. Yeah. Right. Like you have to go looking for it. Some of the like training mastermind options can be extremely expensive. Yeah. In some cases. And because I feel like there's a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem too, right? So if there aren't, people like to do what everybody else is doing. Yeah. So if they don't see a lot of examples of people doing that, then they're less likely to get involved. But I'm strongly convinced that, I'll see a day where that does flip and it's far larger. And I think like if you could travel forward in time and tell people there was a state of the market like this, where you had a relatively small number of investors and this gigantic market of notes and really nobody to compete with, they probably wouldn't believe you, right? Like this is the time, everybody like wishes they had taken advantage of opportunities in in retrospect. People see that in housing prices, like, oh my God, I can't believe what I could have bought that house for 20 years ago, or they do that with stocks. Like I'm telling you, like with the note market, like these are the good old days right now. So
we're living it.
Yeah.
All right. If you had to start all over again, or if you had to tell somebody that's starting over in the note industry right now, that's just starting out, what are some ways they can be professional, and what are some ways they can stand out?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the best ways you can be professional is just be real serious about your processes and systems, right? Like if you have kind of one of the good things about loans is they can be kind of rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So you should understand like what kind of assets you're looking for and have a system for when you get a tape, quickly identifying the assets that you might be interested in, and then have a system for getting through the due diligence process, and a little system for pricing. It doesn't have to necessarily be super elaborate. It doesn't have to be long, but one, that's going to allow you to do more deals and be more repeatable. And it's going to allow you to respond a lot quicker to other people, right? Because even though deals tend to move kind of slow, you can definitely stand out by being able to move more quickly and more accurately than other folks.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. The internal processes needs to be, you need to treat it like a company. This isn't a hobby. This, if you want to do this full time, and if you want to make money being what we call a broker in the business, or, a full-time real estate note investor with your own money, and, this is a profession and you have to act professional. So, get an LLC. Don't just have your own personal name out there with your home address. Like be a storefront. Look like a 10-story building is what somebody told me. So, you have a website. It doesn't have to be a $50,000 website. You can spend, $1,500 and hire somebody just to make something that looks cool and mirrors what other people in our business do. It's not that complicated. Make sure you have, some sort of marketing material so you look like you've been in business for a while, and make sure you have connections like, us two on here. You've called me about deals before in Indianapolis, and I've talked to you about deals in Colorado before. And that's the connection that we have, because I can rely on you and you can rely on me, because we both have the same knowledge in our business and stuff. And so having that network is huge, because you don't have to be able to answer all the questions today. You just have to know somebody that can answer the question for you. Right.
Exactly.
It's the old Ford CEO, right? It's like, he didn't know everything. He just like, well, I hired somebody to do that because they know how to do it. Like, I don't need to know it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a myth, right? In like movies and things, like people watch Iron Man and they think Tony Stark like builds everything. Having worked in high tech, like that's not how it works, right? Steve Jobs didn't build the iPhone by himself.
Right.
I'm sorry. They had like thousands of people doing that for him. So
he just had the idea.
Yeah. Which is important. Right. Yeah. And what he did was valuable, but it takes a lot more than that to actually get the product out the door.
So I'd say you're being professional, you're acting professional. And what gets me the most, and maybe this is just me, Dan, but I cannot stand it when people are using like AOL or Gmail email addresses. It's so easy to go out and get just a domain to where you can have your email address be your domain, and it just makes you look way more professional. Like, you can tell when somebody uses Gmail and they don't have like a email signature at the end. It looks like amateur hour to me. So it just irritates me. And I get it, when somebody's starting out, they might not have a lot of money to spend, and that's okay. But to a certain point, you got to get to a level, because otherwise you're going to lose opportunity. You're going to be looked at as a small player, even though you might be a small player, but you want to have that feeling that you're not a small player and you're not inexperienced. So,
and the reason that's important, it's like I don't care if somebody's using a Gmail in and of itself. But the problem is, because there are a lot of flaky people out there, right? Who will like waste your time, or like make an offer and you accept it and they never close, right? When you don't know somebody,
there's another episode there.
Yeah. There's a pretty good chance they're in that bucket.
Yeah.
And so like the email they're using, those little things, it's just another indicator, right? Because I might instantly assume that, okay, there's a high chance this person's in that bucket. I'm not going to give them as much time. So so like somebody gets to know you, that's helpful.
Every virtual assistant or SEO marketing advertisement I get definitely has a Gmail address or some sort of, address that's not a professional address at the end. So I'm just like, delete, as I know that they're going to be wasting my time. And you're exactly right. And thank you for saying that, because I wasn't going to bring that up because I honestly didn't think about it till you said it. But yeah, you're exactly right. The assumption is this is going to be a waste of my time because they're somebody that's just, 3 degrees of separation removed from somebody else that I should be talking to, because I'm a principal buyer. You're a principal buyer. You want to talk to a principal seller, or vice versa. You're a principal seller. You want to talk to the principal buyer. You don't really want to deal with the person that's like the assistant. So yeah, it's nice to know when you read the room, you know who you're talking to.
Yeah, and one other like quick tip, right? If somebody has something for sale, you're not familiar with them, and you want to make sure they're a principal seller. It's not that difficult to go to Net or online or use Data Tree or something like that to start looking up the chain of assignments on the mortgage to see what entity that goes to and see if it actually maps to that person, right? Because I've had people send me stuff before, and I find out it's owned by somebody else that I know. So,
yeah, you do have to be careful in this business. That's why it's good to find people that you can trust and you've done multiple deals with, because you don't have to scrutinize it so much. And that's why I feel it's important to build those relationships and stuff. So,
yeah, that's why I also like the paper stack escrow process, which is kind of nice, especially if I'm dealing with someone I don't know. Because, basically the way that works is, you'll wire the funds to them. They get the hard collateral and do an audit, and they release everything, after they've assured that everything's kosher. So it costs a little more money, but if I'm dealing with someone new, I kind of like that to just protect myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's nice to have that protection there. Sometimes I feel like people just absorb too much of your time before they get to that point to where they want to buy it. It's like I'm just trying to get to that point. Like, if you're serious, just commit. If you're not serious, please just, go ahead and move on. You don't have to tie up the deal,
Yeah. My other hot tip is I've had this happen a couple times where I have a deal with someone and they come back and they're like, oh, I don't like this one thing. Can we make this one adjustment? And I've occasionally just said, okay, fine, let's just get this done. Whenever I've done that, they've always come back with something else and something else. So if someone's starting to like tread down that path of finding problems, causing delays, like usually they're never going to close.
Yeah.
Right. So you can see where that's heading pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Dan, we're going to close out this episode today. I got one last question to ask you, and that is, I want you to name your top 5 sports that you like, and starting with number 1.
Oh, well, number 1 is golf.
Okay. Amen.
That's pretty easy.
Okay.
Number 2 is hiking.
Is that a sport?
I don't know if it's a sport, but it's an activity.
Let me rephrase the question here. Let's talk about like professional sports here. I want to hear your professional sports.
Oh, I thought you were talking about things like I was doing. Okay.
Well, I wasn't clear. That's on me. I'll take the blame for that.
Okay. Well, okay. So sports I like to watch. So it's still golf. Second would be football. Third
NFL?
NFL. Okay. Although I am a University of Colorado guy, and so I will be following Coach Prime, although they've been horrible for years.
Where's your glasses at? You don't have Coach Prime glasses?
Oh, I've got them. Hold on.
Oh, you do? All right. Those of you that are listening, you need to get over to the American Note Buyers YouTube channel so you can check out.
Yeah, I've got these. I got these at
Coach Prime glasses.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Let's see. So first golf, second football, third basketball.
Wait, pro or men's?
Pro. Okay. Yeah, college basketball I don't really watch at all. Although I did go to one CU game.
Okay.
This year. Beyond that, it drops off.
So you got 3 and then it drops off
pretty quick. Yeah, I don't watch a whole lot of TV to begin with, and if I do, it's sports of some sort. I used to watch UFC, but I've kind of fallen out of that. I haven't followed that the last couple of years.
I can boxing. Okay, I might watch like maybe whatever is it Jake Paul and Mike Tyson are going to fight. Maybe they've already fought and I totally missed it. But
yeah, during COVID,
that sounds interesting.
I got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a little bit. I didn't get too far into it. It's like the most anti-COVID thing you could do. It's like meeting with strangers and choking each other.
Let's just put our germs on each other.
But it was a good way to stay sane. And then I moved and I was further away from the gym, so I kind of dropped it. But that was fun because the guy that ran that gym actually coached UFC fighters and stuff. In fact, if you remember when several years ago when Conor McGregor attacked the bus in New York, this guy was on the bus when it happened. And when he told that story, it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm about to hear that story offline here. So, all right, everybody. This was Denver Dan Deppen coming to you live from the what's the Nuggets arena called?
Ball Arena.
Ball Arena?
Yeah, like a former Indiana company, like the Ball Canning. Yeah.
Oh, I'm still not getting it.
Ball Corporation, the ball jars. They make soda
cans. Oh, gosh.
Cans.
Okay, now.
They were originally headquartered in Muncie, Indiana, and then they moved their headquarters to Colorado late 90s, something like that.
Yeah, you're full of awesome knowledge, man. I like this.
I'm like Cliff Clavin. Yeah, I've got all kinds of.
Oh man, Dan, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Episode 10 of season 6 on the Be the Bank podcast, sponsored by American Note Buyers. Dan, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, best way is if you go to fusionnotes.com/listeners. There's links to all of my stuff on that page.
All right, Dan's got his own podcast as well, and it's called
The Note Investor Podcast.
That's pretty easy to find out what you talk about.
Yeah, it's pretty direct.
That's right. All right, Dan, thanks again for being on the show today. I appreciate it. Appreciate you being my friend, and enjoyed having this conversation. And we will see you guys on the next episode here. See you, Dan.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening to Be the Bank. We hope you learned something from today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us. Plus, check out our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Be the Bank and on Instagram at Be the Bank Podcast. Be the Bank is sponsored by American Note Buyers. Thanks again for listening.